So, hello and peace be upon you. What is this? Peace be upon you. It's the ancient way practiced by Jesus, Moses, Prophet Muhammad, all these prophets of connecting in a beautiful way. Because what it really means is you're really important to me, and I wish you inner peace, and I promise not to do anything bad to you. I wish you well, in short. So, peace be upon you. I'm so happy that you are joining me on the show. I hope that somehow something in this show might benefit you, because that's the whole idea. This is a very chilled out show. I'm always experimenting. This stuff in the background, that's me trying to be professional, and it's already fallen down like a couple of times. So try to ignore it when it does probably fall down. I'm just trying to improve the sound quality if you're wondering what that foamy stuff is. Anyway, so what is this show about? It's a Q&A, question answer. I want you to, you know, communicate with me. If I say something that you don't understand or agree with, just tell me. Nowadays, people are so shy of expressing themselves that it's terrible. Like, I won't get offended. Like, if you're trapped and you can't communicate and you can't express yourself, that's like living in a prison. And human beings are there to really express themselves, and that doesn't mean be horrible to each other, because that doesn't make you happy either. And so this is about happiness, this show. I do it every week. What else is there? And yeah, it's about solving big problems and small problems. So it's not happiness in a sort of selfish way. It's happiness that is really easy to get. It's using ancient wisdom sourced from Islam, which is actually an evolution of religion. God kept on teaching religions to different tribes, and those religions are not like to benefit God, but to benefit humanity. So anyway, that's my very long intro. I'm going to try to pack this show with as many happiness tips as I can. Please join the live stream, ask me questions, and I can stop whatever I have it planned. But I'm going to talk about things like personal issues. How do you find motivation? Talk about different ideas from different gurus around the internet. And what else is there on my show? So you can see what I'm going to be talking about. Let me get on the right screen. There we go. A couple of things. How do you solve COVID? Let's see if we get to that one. What are miracles? Blah, blah, blah. But let's start off with a few minutes on the weekly happiness tip, a short happiness tip to make you feel better about your life every day. So here's a saying of Prophet Muhammad. He said, peace be upon him, concentrate duly on any one aspect of a project, and the other aspects will fall into place. Maybe that sounds really simple, but so many people at so many different levels don't do anything, so many things in their life, because the challenge of that thing seems to be too big. Almost everything, even if it looks at first small, has lots of parts, lots of challenges within it. But then if you don't do those things, you're kind of missing out on life. So how do you take on these really big problems? What you do is, you first of all, you think about what is the big problem that you want to solve, and hopefully it's a good thing. I've talked about that's what human beings are motivated by. Truly, it's not really money. We really want to do something useful, productive with our lives. That's how we're built. That's what makes us happy. So you think of some project of some sort of benefit, and then you just pick up one tiny minuscule part of it, and maybe break that down even more, and just do that thing. Focus on getting that one thing done. And the extra benefit is that you don't actually know how to solve any big problem, especially if you haven't done it before. So when you solve that tiny bit of the problem, there you go, as promised. I don't know, probably won't do that next week. Hopefully the sound is not getting any worse. And I don't know what I'm doing, by the way. So unless I'm kind of what we call in the teaching profession, because I'm a teacher, I'm modeling the behavior of happiness, which is trying stuff, not knowing what you're doing, and learning from it. Anyway, so just do that tiny bit. And when you do that tiny bit, it's like going down a path, like in a forest. When you go down the path, you understand what's round the corner. But before you go down the path, you have no idea. And that's true of all human experience. You have to try stuff and then you learn more about the thing you're doing. So anyway, I'm trying to keep it super short in 5-minute slots. Normally I do 10-minute questions, but I'm just keeping it down to 5 minutes. Okay, personal issues. Can you really change the world? That's kind of one of my big problems. No, not my big problems, but in the category of how I count as a big issue, but I really feel like talking about COVID, since the UK has one of the worst COVID rates in the world. So it kind of feels like the right time to talk about it. It seems to be all the time. But anyway, here we go. Can you change the world? So what I do in these shows, and these shows are, I always miss out things. These shows are for everybody. What I do is I take a beautiful bit of insight into the human mind, brought to you by God, who's our creator, who knows how we work, okay, how we truly function. And then use that with lots of logic to explain why it's really useful in your life. So, can you really change the world? So, the Quran talks about people who think that the world can't change or do not have a positive outlook. They don't think good will overcome bad in the long run. So there's a verse of the Quran that says, have you seen that person who denies the judgment? Now, the actual text is in Arabic, and Arabic is a very mathematical language in the sense that it has very precise meaning, but lots of them coming from different places are called roots. Okay, and so one of the many meanings basically comes down to is it's a person is terrible. This is very interesting. A person is terrible or a bad person, okay, if they do not plan their life. That's one interesting thing. And who does not, what does it say here? Let me see. Was it 7 or 8? One who does not make a habit of doing good things. One who does not conform his conduct to divine decree, basically is not in line with God's teaching, who does not worship God, who has no plan for the future or despairs of the future. Let me see. He does not believe good prevails over evil. Okay, so you might think, hang on a minute, the question was, can we change the world? And I'm saying, yes, you should believe we can change the world, because if you don't, you're not a good person. So that sounds really harsh. Like, what kind of solution is that? What I'm saying here, there are a couple of levels of analysis we can do here. First of all, we see that change happens a lot of the time. So when people make an effort, change happens. I don't know. People love talking about Elon Musk at the moment. Only a few years ago, it was the case that all car companies for like over 100 years or something used petrol and had no plan on changing the mind. So along comes Elon Musk, and suddenly, bang, where all car companies are going after being electric. There's an example of change, but that's just at one level of analysis or one level of understanding. Why is it bad? Why is it bad? So first of all, I want to get to the highest level of understanding. That is, first of all, realizing there's a God who's maintaining our lives. And I've talked about this many times, that it's logical and mathematically, statistically logical, or basically, let's say the other way around, is statistically impossible that God does not exist. Okay, and atheists are quite aware of that, people who kind of study this, but they still believe in the 0.0000 infinity 1% chance that God does not exist. So anyway, once you realize or become more aware that God exists, who's maintaining our lives and purifying our water, purifying our air, okay, that what you're saying is God is blind to all the bad things and won't ever fix things. Okay, so that's kind of an insult to God, first of all, and lack of awareness of God. uh hey, Mohammed Abeda, worker, he's one of my old students from Jordan when I was there in the Middle East. Lovely people there, so hey, back. Okay, so that's in the chat, by the way. So that's one level of analysis, but I think the one that hits hardest, or maybe easiest to understand about why you should believe that the world can change, even though I understand it is difficult, okay, is that people who just say, "Oh no, you can't change the world," practice, those people don't make an effort to change the world. They they make it as an excuse not to make a difference. And that's really bad, because we've all got to be part of the society and part of the solution. And when you're not part of the solution, by the way, if you look at the history of Nazi Germany, the people who just went along with things, they end up doing really bad things. So that's another reason why such people are really bad. There's a saying that goes something like, when good people do nothing, bad things happen, something like that. Okay, so anyway, that's a quick answer to that. I think maybe I took too long, 6 minutes. Let's go for the next one. By the way, Mohammed Abeda, you got a question? Go for it. I'd love to answer it, but otherwise, just sit back and enjoy the show. Thank you for saying hey. How do you motivate yourself? So when I answer these questions, I'm not just trying to give some sort of logical answer. I know that these are, by the way, where am I getting these questions from? They're from real people who are really struggling in different ways, and it might just be a short question, but it's really important to them. And actually, it's not just important to them, it's important to everybody. We're human beings. We all have so much in common. We all have very similar struggles. 1 minute, I'm going to enjoy my tea. By the way, tell me if the sound quality is better or worse. I'm experimenting with a lot of bits of technology here. I'm not sure if you can see the mic there. Anyway, yeah, how do you motivate yourself? So when you are doing something that's against your inherent design, then you get less motivated. That's part of it. Now, you can force yourself or delude yourself and be motivated by other things. Like, you delude yourself that loads of money is going to make you happier, even though there's loads of evidence that it's not quite true. Yeah. um so you can do that for a while, but overall you start you be right. It's like an uphill struggle, and you'll have to take loads of drugs and do lots of bad things to keep yourself going on that hill. So that's not the kind of motivation I'm talking about. There are these videos around in the internet where there's this guy who who told about how he was Iron Man 3 times or something, and the first time he did it, right, his bone broke while he was walking, and he was bleeding, and he kept on going. Like, I don't think that's healthy, and that's not really helpful for anything useful. Okay, you might say that person's really successful because he just basically kills himself all the time. I'll tell you, probably not happy. Okay, that's not the way to be happy. Just to be brutal to yourself. You need to have a purpose and a direction, and that's what I'm going to get back to now. To be motivated, you need to be doing good things. That's it. Well, not it really. It's kind of, there's always two elements that I keep talking about. You need to be connected with God in some way. Be aware of God. Make a difference. Yeah. Be aware of God. Take a tiny step in some way. Just remember God. Um, that is your compass, as it were. God is your compass. It gives you direction, the big picture, because you're only here for a short while and you want to do something meaningful. And when you become aware of God, and your position in life, then you take a bigger picture, or big picture view. Well, I don't know what they call it. I think there's some fancy marketing word for it. Anyway, so you see the big picture, and then you take your moves accordingly, or you make your choices accordingly. So when you make your choices accordingly, automatically, because they align with God, you become more motivated. And maybe right now, if you're not feeling motivated, you're not really making your choices in line with God. And then do something that's good. doing something that's good, that's what we like to do, that's what makes us happy. Then when you do a little bit of good stuff, you get more motivated. And also, when you're doing stuff, so sometimes you get into this thing called a rut, like you get stuck, you feel like you can't do anything. Okay, just by doing something every day, you keep the engine rolling and you keep moving forward. So that's really important to act. Very quickly, I just want to finish off with, because I know I've already hit my 5 minute limit for this question. um, Basically everybody lacks motivation in some way. I do, right? So I will be working on a cool project, but I get really tired from doing it because it's like hard problem solving. Then I pause and I be nice to myself. That's part of being in line with God, because when you're nice to everybody else, you're a human being as well, so you shouldn't you be nice to yourself? Or that would be quite hypocritical if you're nice to everybody but not nice to yourself. So it's that balance as well. That awareness of all these things will help you be motivated. Okay, next one. By the way, feel free to ask a question, just disrupt my list of questions. That's cool. That's cool. Because these are just like, oh, I want to answer them, but I want to answer your questions as well. Okay. How can you think about spirituality if you're poor and have other problems? So I like this question a lot. Actually, I like all the questions a lot, but the reason I like this question is because it explains an important bit of confusion. So I've heard this before from different people. I don't know. I think a couple of people not too long, but I especially remember talking to a Polish neighbor of mine ages ago, and he used to say something like that. So I'm so busy, I just don't have time for this stuff, even though he would send his daughter to Sunday school. I don't really understand that, but I think a lot actually I do understand it, so I'm going to explain it. So what happens is that spirituality becomes this thing people feel they're obliged to do. Okay, or religion is this thing you have to do. It's this thing that God is apparently making you do to make your life miserable, so that maybe you'll get into heaven in the next life or something. That's so not the point. In fact, Islam teaches basically that, and I've talked about this before, that if you're not happy in this world, if you don't find paradise in this world, you won't find it in the next. Yeah, it's not like you're waiting for the next life. You're going to find it in this life, and you do it by following these spiritual rules. They're not, God doesn't, you're like a grain of sand to God. Like, it doesn't really affect God what you do. All these teachings are for your benefit. So God is just trying to get you to be a better person, and in the process you'll be a happier person. So don't think that these are separate things. So if you're poor, and those, by the way, in many ways, it's easier for poor people to be spiritual, because when you get lots of money, you're tempted to do, you get more choices, and the choices are the things that make you do the wrong thing. But the default is that so for example, so when you've got no money, kind of basically no money, you don't get to spend all your time in front of Netflix or whatever and computer games in your own corner by yourself being miserable, in short, because when you're not connected to other people, you're miserable. So what a lot of poorer countries do, because they don't have any of that, they're just in the streets talking to each other, and that makes people so much happier, right? So I love travel shows, and there's this guy who's in Bali in Indonesia, and he's like, gosh, I'm so happy here. And it's like some weird energy he's talking about. Like, the energy is just people smiling at each other, actually noticing each other. It's that thing of recognizing each other when people see, rather than not making eye contact, which is what you see in big cities. And that's why people are so miserable. Never mind how much money you make. Okay, one more minute for that. So, and I have other problems. Okay, so I'm reading the question again. How can you think about spirituality if you're poor and have other problems? You know what? I'm trying not to mess around with the, what's it called? Tech, but I think I will, just for the fun of it. I don't know. Post that. Oh, okay. And then show that. So it's nice and big on the screen. Okay. Anyway, So anyway, my time's run out. Why did I bother doing that? So how can you think about spirituality if you're poor and have other problems? Well, actually, the whole point of this spirituality is not like so for the next life. It's like helping you in this life. These are practical solutions to solve your problems. So it's not like how can you do the spirituality if you have problems. It's the spirituality that solves the problems. Cool. So I really hope that's not just some sort of logical answer that just makes sense. I really hope that actually whoever's listening, it makes a difference. Anyway, let's go. Next thing, let's copy this from the beginning of the show. Beginning of doing this question, and let's paste it in. Bang and click. Cool. Okay. Says, I have trouble finding anyone to marry because I do not feel I have enough in common with all the people who have been put forward to me as suitors. So, somebody I know, part of the Muslim community, and in an organized Muslim community, we make it easier, let's say, to find people who will be lifelong partners rather than what you normally see is like dating where you're showing off to each other, you're looking your best, not how you really look every day, and you don't really get a real picture of that human being. That if you want to really be honest with that person and be really connected with that person, I don't think you get that when you're on a date, because you're not really you're kind of motivated to be somebody you're not really. Okay, anyway, so that's kind of a bit of background, but it's not really answering the question. I do not feel I have enough in common with other people who have been put forward. Okay, right, so you don't have stuff in common with the people. Yeah, you're not going to be. So there is this idea that you're going to find your soulmate, and that's going to complete you, and life is going to be happily ever after. That is a recipe for disaster if you think about that. And there is psychological or whatever testing experiments. You can Google it. That tells you people who have really high expectations before they get married of the other person, they're the ones who struggle through marriage. Does that mean you should have low expectation? No, it should mean you should have less expectation of other people and more expectations of yourself to become a better person. And when you become a better person, you're modeling or being an example for the other person to be a better person. I don't think I'll wear this shirt. I feel like it's how. There you go. Another one's gone down. This shirt feels like it's having some weird effect on the camera. So that's another learning thing. Don't put these on. Don't wear this shirt. Maybe next time. You can tell me. I'm going to watch the video after because it looks really weird. Some sort of psychedelic effect. Maybe you're enjoying it. Tell me. Anyway, so I have trouble. So what you don't think that person's going to be a soulmate. So maybe you're setting too high standards for them to be exactly like you. In fact, a lot of marriages work because, like me and my wife, because we're so different, and then we can do like I do the big creative kind of stuff, and my wife likes to doing all the sensible paperwork stuff, and I hate the paperwork stuff, and then it works because we get the jobs done basically. So it works if we're really different. And so the basic thing I would say there is don't look for what you have in common. You're going to be changing as a human being anyway. Make sure your principles are the same. Those are the key things that really keep you together. Do you both believe in telling the truth? Some people like maybe don't think telling the truth is so important. You might have, different levels of importance for that kind of thing. Or do you think drinking alcohol is important? Those are the things that really connect people, principles. And so if you really want to have a real connection, if you want to have a team that really works, you need to connect on principles, not on interest at the moment, because even interest and all these kind of things change. But principles should kind of stay the same or develop or become more important to you as we get older, as you become more principled. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. I just want to say principles, work for the principles. I don't know if I can explain that any better. You can tell me if you disagree, and then I can explain it better. Anyway, let's move on to the next thing. Copy. I've got my I'm not going to talk about technical stuff to you guys, bore you with it. Let's just talk about the stuff on the show, eh? Okay, because I am not married, so this is obviously the same person. Because I am not married, I feel like I cannot focus and achieve my potential. What can I do about it? Right. Okay. So I would recommend, this is going to sound stupid, right? But it's a really good target to get married. Okay, so work on that as a step, and I don't want to just say it's really good. Again, coming back, so this is a religious teaching. Whoops. Okay. Um, this is a religious teaching that in Islam, for example, marriage is half of faith. Okay, but also it's a practical teaching finding even from psychological studies that married men, for example, get paid way more than single men. Okay, why is that? Because it helps people focus. So you're right on the money when you say you're not feeling that you're focused. So that helps you focus in lots of different ways. You can guess, like, you're not let's say dreaming about, oh, if I was only with this woman or that woman or all this kind of stuff, or vice versa. If you're a woman, think of men, whatever, right? The point is that you'd stop fantasizing about stuff. You kind of get on with the rest of life when you're married, right? um and it becomes less important. It should be less important, like sexual relationships and things, because that's not all of life. um but what can you do besides that? Well, coming back to uh so the okay so yeah so coming back to my first tip in the beginning, concentrate duly on any one aspect of a project and the other aspects will fall into place. So, like, this helplessness of, like, I can't solve this problem, that kind of vibe I'm getting from the question, that itself is going to make you miserable. So start by saying, what is the smallest thing I can do to solve this problem? So maybe go to the website that the Muslim community has, that I know we have, okay, and get on there. Just get on the website. Next day, go on the website again, maybe press a button, and things like that. That's part of it. But another thing that's really important going into marriage is that you shouldn't depend wholly on your other half, as it were, because that is putting a lot of pressure on another person. Yeah. So what I mean by that is start developing your relationship with God, and that means, what that practically means is realize that God is the sustainer of your life, not just this planet. Well, should somebody say it the other way around? Not just this planet. No, I don't know. Whatever way the sustainer of your life. Okay, and everything that you get is because of God. It's not by accident that it's like a 50-50 men and women. There are enough men and women for each other to get married and stuff like that. God provide everything that you need comes from God. So become more dependent on God rather than yourself or other human beings. And that mentality really frees you, I would say. And the more you depend on God, you see, this is a lot of it is try it and see if it's true, right? The more you depend on God, the more God promises to take care of you. When I say more depends on God, the more you serve God. So like actually, because that's what the saying of Prophet Muhammad is like Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, um, that when my servant, I don't know, I can't remember exactly how it goes, comes close to me, I by the span of one hand, then I take an arm's length. Basically, okay, I'm not going to ruin it. I've been told that I ruin stories and don't complete the saying, so I'm going to actually go and say this one. When my servant um, comes to me by the span of a hand, I come close to him by the length of an forearm, I think. And then when he walks to me, I come running to him. Um, and then when he something like completely listens to me or obeys me, I become the hands with which he strikes and the feet with which he walks. Basically, the idea is God is really wanting you to obey him so that you benefit and so that he will help you more and more. He's rooting for you. God is rooting for you. Okay, there's lots of sayings that go along those lines, and all I'm saying is don't believe me, try it, you'll see. Okay, that's my experience all the time. Okay, 31. Oh my god, I'm really going over my limits. Here we go. If your financial status is not stable or secure relative to the standards of the country, that can affect your faith. What can I do about it? Okay, so yeah, okay. So really, this person knows he's not poor. He was like, when he was saying this, he was like, I'm not poor, but, and I've got this and this, but all this kind of stuff, right? And you can kind of see where this answer is going kind of like, but maybe not. There's a saying of Prophet Muhammad, which, so this is something, this kind of constant inferiority complex in a materialistic world is the norm. That's what basically everybody feels in some way. That, I mean, not about their faith necessarily, but this feeling that their financial status is just not good enough or even secure enough, right? You just feel like, oh, like what happens if I lose my job? People are terrified of that. Every time I'm in a job, I'm not terrified of losing my job, but it's a common feeling that people are so scared that the whole world will end. That's like living in a prison your whole life if your life is like that. But anyway, so so there's a saying of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that will really help a lot of people, and it goes something like this. It says, do not look at what people look at those people who have more than you. Look at compare yourself with those people who have less than you. Okay, this is amazing psychological stuff. Let me explain, right? Our normal human behavior is to always compare above, like, I wish I had, to not be grateful, to not see how lucky you are. Fennel tea. Anyway, but if you do this small psychological twist in your thinking, which is simply to look at somebody who's got less than you and just think about them and then compare to yourself, then suddenly you will feel how lucky you are. Because you are lucky, you've got so much stuff. This comes back to, got 1 minute, and I'm trying to not to ruin the next story, which I learned when I was in primary school, and it still sticks with me. And it's all about this thing that we've got so much, but we don't realize it and how lucky we are. Okay, so there was this guy who was I don't know, he met somebody, and that's it. That person says, do you want to check out heaven and hell? Like, yeah. Okay, so come on this lift. All right, I'll get on the lift. So he presses the button, and the door opens. And so we're going to check out hell, by the way, first. The door opens, huge table, tons of food. It's like, are you sure this is hell? Because there's a ton of food here. And these tables are nice and the chairs are nice, right? But you look to the people and they're all really skinny. It's like, how can they be that skinny and have so much food? And then he looked at their spoons, and their spoons were really long. Okay, and they couldn't get the food from the spoons into their mouths. Okay, it sounds really stupid, but there's a really good meaning to it. Okay, anyway, so goes back in the lift, goes up the next floor, bing, and we're in heaven. Check it out. And it's like, this looks the same. Are you sure it's a different place? There's a huge table with tons of food. Everybody's facing each other, and yeah. And then you look more closely, and the big spoons were there as well, by the way. But this time, everybody was smiling and fat. I mean, I don't recommend being fat, but like they had enough food, right? So, and what he noticed was people were feeding each other. So, the moral of the story, this is so important, so deep, this so wise, this thing, is that you can have loads and loads of stuff and be miserable. And that's about today. Even though the long spoons idea sounds stupid, it's reality. And the second thing is, psychological findings have shown that you actually get happier when you give stuff to other people. And that's very much in line with Prophet Muhammad's teaching, which is paradise is the abode or the home of the generous. So do that. Just be generous. You find you just feel free. You'll feel much happier. Yeah, and generous just doesn't mean like give money. Like I'm doing this show, and when you do stuff, like I'm doing the show, get nothing for it, and I'll do this show if nobody was listening. But when I do it, I feel happier, and not like the ecstasy drug sort of way, more like free and stuff like that. Anyway, I could talk about it, but I want to move on to the next question. So let's go on to this. We're on the last one. Awesome question. How do you form a relationship with God? The answer is you listen to God. The whole point of the the highest level or the highest benefit you can get from religion and all the teachings and all the guidance that God gives you is so that you have a relationship with God. But part of knowing how to have a relationship with God is to know what it even means. Like, do you just want to like, hey God, let's have a chat, just meaningless chat? What does that mean? Or do you want God to be like the big boss who, like, you say, God, I want that. I want all the Chupa Chups. Those are lollipops, by the way, Chupa Chups. Okay, shouldn't be advertising Chupa Chups. All the lollipops in the shop and the ice cream. Like, what do you want from God? No, that's just like a failed idea. What the Quran teaches is that I have not created, this is what the Quran teaches, I've not created the great men and the normal people, all people basically, except that they should, the word ibadah, they should worship me is the weak translation, but it's the practical and simple translation for people who don't want to delve. They like do something, yeah, just prostrate and remember God, you benefit in some way. But the real meaning is to be at one with God. It's the very the Islam, the meaning of Islam itself is to submit your ego, your arrogance, your will to God. And then the other meaning of Islam, this is the amazing thing about Arabic, the Islam, one word, I think it means, I think it's one word. On one side, it means like what to do, submit your will. And the other side is what you get, which is peace, inner peace. Islam means peace. You probably would have heard that. But did you know Islam means submit your will? Actually, it means both. It's like what you do, submit your will. What you get, inner peace. And not you just get inner peace. Everybody around you gets inner peace. The world becomes a better place. We become less destructive. Like, why do we consume so much? Why are we eating so much? Because we're unhappy and we're trying to fill the void. Okay, why do we create tons and tons of plastic and go move at 100 miles an hour? It's because we're so unhappy that we're just producing and producing and we're trying to fill the void. Okay, yeah, So, how do you form a relationship with God? Well, basically, what you want to do is reduce your arrogance, and you will feel that relationship. Reduce that arrogance, submit your will, let go, and don't do things because you want to do it. Think so, submit with your will. It doesn't mean just do nothing. Oh, you just kill. No, it means listen to God, even when it's uncomfortable. Don't do it for yourself. Like when you're trying to get married, don't do it for yourself. Then you'll find a person who doesn't do things for herself, and then you won't end up in a relationship where you're just both trying to be as selfish as possible, ignoring each other and all that kind of stuff. In Islam, by the way, and this is kind of a natural law of attraction that you keep hearing, but Islam says good men are for good women and bad men are for bad women. Good, good people attract good people, in short. Anyway, next one. Okay, so I love talking about different internet gurus. Let's copy and paste that. It's 5 minutes a question. I think that's going quite well. You can tell me what you think. Normally I spend 10 minutes in a question, but I think I kind of forget what the question is when I spend 10 minutes on a question. So you can tell me what you think. I do get a lot of feedback. So, hope the internet's still working. It's not going on to having trouble connecting. Please connect. Oh no, don't internet, don't stop. We've been getting a lot more internet problems since pandemic, but that usually happens more during school hours. Anyway, okay, never mind. Let's just go for this. The some guy called Robin Sharma. If you're a fan, you'll know him. Fairly bold or something. Anyway, he says he's written a book called the 5 a.m. Club, 5 in the morning club, basically. And one of the sayings he has is the place where your greatest discomfort lies is also the spot where your largest opportunity lives. Ooh, sounds fancy, right? It lies, it lives, and all this kind of stuff, right? I'm going to give the short version. There are some good things about it, okay? Some tiny truth, but it's kind of the baby version of the truth, and it's not actually that helpful. But if you're starting from zero, it will start you off, but maybe it'll quite likely send you to a bad place as well, in many respects. So, what am I talking about? Okay, so let's talk about this. Uh, just going for where the greatest discomfort is. No, that's stupid. Okay, there's a reason why certain things are painful, and pain is telling you, and a lot of the time, don't do it. Okay, what you really want to know is why you're doing it. That's the thing that really motivates us. Sorry, there's a moth distracting me. Anyway, so do good things. That's what really motivates human beings. Have higher and higher levels of connection, and that means God is the highest level of connection. But what about connection with human beings, right? Focus on those things. I keep repeating these things. Those are the things where you need to work hard on. Okay, so don't just so yeah, sure, go to places where there is discomfort, but not random places. That's not really good advice, just going for stuff that's hard. That's like that SAS guy, not SAS, Special Forces, because it's American, or Navy SEALs, I think he was. Yeah, it's like he just goes for making his life really hard and doing every marathon and all this kind of stuff. There's no point. Do you know that people who do too many marathons, their arteries get harder and it's actually bad for you? So don't do that. Yeah, go for long walks. Fast walks. They're actually really good. That's the science, by the way. Okay, is the internet still going? Cool. I wonder if I click that now, it will show. All right. Okay. Cool. Okay. So that's the thing that Robin Sharma said. Good, but not that good, really. And the 5 a.m. club. So he's got a little routine he believes in. So routine is very much a part of religion. Like there's 5 daily prayers. Okay. And routine really helps you. All really successful people have routines, because what it is that we have to make the average person makes, I don't know, 200 choices a day. Each choice takes mental energy, and therefore limits the amount of thinking and creativity and all the useful stuff you can do. So you want to make less choices, and therefore using a routine makes you're not thinking about stuff, you're just doing stuff that is already important, but you're not thinking about them, you're just doing them because you've already set it up for the day. So those kind of routines are really good. He talks about exercise, great, good for you, but only 20 minutes, and then reflect for 20 minutes, okay, not much, and grow for just 20 minutes, okay, whatever, okay, something is better than nothing if you're starting from zero. Then he says do this 5 o'clock in the morning, so basically 5 to 6. That's good, but what Islam, I'm just giving the short version, Islam does something even better. Okay, so by the way, Muslims get up dawn, no, pre-dawn, I forgot what they call it, before the sun rises, okay. I think that's what it's called, I can't remember. Anyway, so that's one of the 5 daily prayers are, and that those daily prayers are not just like just random reflecting, they're like really cool keywords that help you reflect and make you a happy person and focus you, not just random words that come to your mind. Like all praise, all thanks to God. Actually starts before that, I suppose. Like I, in the name of God, meaning what that means is that I'm hopeless without you. I'm starting this day with you, right? Even if I make a plan, it could just screw up. Like I'm just going to put my best foot forward, but I'm hoping you're going to be there for me, God. That's that kind of, those amazing key words. Those are the words of the prayer in Islam. And anyway, the other thing I want to quickly throw in is that 5 a.m. is not always the best time. Okay, what Islam does also, it does something, I don't know what it's called, the circadian rhythm, I think. It's like basically in when there is less daylight, you don't want to be awake that long. So basically, the timings of the prayers, the points of reflection, are adjusted according to the lengths of the days, and that is more in line with human nature. So basically, Islam has got much better solutions or ways of improving your life. I'm just trying to make this thing not scrape against anything. Hopefully, it's not. It might be. Oh, really sorry if it is. Okay. So anyway, so yeah, Islam has got even better answers to God, I should say, has got better solutions for your functioning because he's your creator than Robin Sharma. But thank you, Robin Sharma. Maybe somebody has benefited from your ideas. They seem to have some merit. Okay, I like to talk about different religions and compare them, what we can learn, and maybe learn. There's a lot of misconceptions about Islam. Uh, I've got a misconception coming later on, but let's go for this one. I'll spend like 1 or 2 minutes on this, I think. Really quick one. Halal versus kosher. I want to talk about halal actually, because it's like you see it around, and maybe some people are really confused what it is, but a lot of people are not confused actually. I know, I remember one of the, I don't know, some Christian person was telling me that she loves getting halal meat because she knows what halal means. It means it's killed in a clean way, so that blood is thrown out and there's no toxins left in the food, and all sorts of things like that. So I could go into the details of what halal is maybe, but the point is that it's really healthy. That's actually the main thing. All these teachings in Islam, they're not just, hey, there's another one done. Okay, so all these teachings in Islam, they're just like to benefit you. So what is halal? It means you don't eat animals that eat other animals. I think if you probably research into it, it's bad for you. It means don't eat pork. So that's another thing that kind of confuses people. Like, why would you not eat pork? You know, what's wrong with pigs? You know, actually, what's wrong with them for human consumption? Okay, is that they have a very short digestive cycle, unlike say something like cows or whatever, which means, in short, that there are lots of toxins that are left within the flesh of the animal, and then you end up eating it. So it's unhealthy meat is one thing. So there are many other reasons, like God wanted to see, God basically says, you can have everything, but I want to see if you got some self-control as well. Don't eat this. And by the way, you can find out later on, oh, actually, it's not so good for you. So probably makes sense to have that self-control. Um, so there are a lot of those teachings of Islam about all sorts of things, not just about what you are and not allowed to eat. There's like Prophet Muhammad recommends having salt to make your food taste better, but everything in moderation. You've got to be exercising, especially if you're in a hot country, it helps you more. Drinking milk is good for you, but obviously in moderation. So things like that. And I say in moderation, Islam's got loads of cool teachings about how to eat. Anyway, I didn't even mention what kosher is, and I really want to talk about it. So one difference between halal and kosher is that halal says don't have alcohol, and kosher, you are allowed to have alcohol. So that's interesting. I mean, interesting on many different levels. Like, why would God say you're allowed to have alcohol at one point and then not allowed at a later point? I think I'm going to run out of time on that one, so I will talk about it briefly. I won't talk about that bit, but like, that's pretty good considering 1/3 of the people who go into this sort of accident and emergency, part of the hospital are as a result of drinking alcohol. And that's just one element of it. It's like I went to a Christmas party and people felt they needed to drink alcohol to connect people. I call it a crutch. Yeah, it's like something you depend on, but you're not really connecting if you're drunk. You're not really. Okay, you barely know what's going on. And that's really sad. And if you depend on that crutch, you become dependent, and then you can't really learn to connect. Everybody is my brother and sister, and I try to connect with them as human beings. Do that in my interviews like today, and I don't know, all sorts of stuff, right? All the time, I try to look up and just smile, but not freak anybody out at the same time, because in London, people don't smile at each other normally. I don't want to insult a whole people. It's not good. It's against the teachings of Islam. I'm just saying it is a problem, but there are lots and lots of lovely people out there trying to make the world a better place as well. That's a better description, including in London, by the way. So yeah, kosher is really hard, and halal is really flexible. Kosher and very few. What brought this on was I was watching a video about this guy who interviews people in Israel and Palestine, and he asked some random questions. Said, "Do you practice kosher?" And just about everybody was saying no. There's one person who said, "Yes, I do." Proudly, and then said, "Oh, do you kosher? One of the things in kosher is you have to separate dairy and meat products. Okay, so you basically can't have a cheeseburger." And she said, "No, I don't do that," but didn't feel bad about it. So basically, it's really hard to practice kosher. I had my best just to balance it, just in case people are getting the wrong impression about my relationship with Jews. Because you might get that vibe from how I'm talking. It's totally wrong. So I had my best two friends, I'm not exaggerating, the ones I connected most, more than any Muslim or whatever. My other two friends might feel bad about it if they ever watch this video, but we're Jews, okay? Because like we had so much in common. Okay, there is so much in common. I haven't got the time right now. Okay, so I've totally felt more connected with them. One boy, one girl, Daniel and Sushana, awesome people. Okay, and yeah, so religious, more religious than the Muslims around me, and they practice basically Islam better than other people. And it's not just that outer practice of it. It's like how you lead your life and what's important to you comes through when you really practice your religion properly. So I felt connected with them more than anybody else, and so that's important. And also that Daniel, he said he went to China or something on a trip during the holidays and almost starved with his Jewish friends because kosher is so hard to keep to, because he was a strict Jew. So anyway, right. What else can I say about halal and kosher? I think I've done 10 minutes or something. Whatever, let's go. Last. How do you solve COVID? Let's do it. That'll be a fun way to end. Okay, so 1 second. Hmm. I had COVID. Still some this cough coming through from it, even though it's been like 2 weeks since I had it. Anyway, right. So Islam has some amazing teachings about how to solve COVID, and it says it's so kind of logical. It says if you have a plague, and a plague just basically means an infectious disease. Okay, if there is a plague in a land, Prophet Muhammad peace be upon him says, then don't go to it. And if you're already in a land where the plague is, do not flee from it. This is in a time when people didn't even really understand how infections work. They didn't know what germs were and all this kind of stuff. This is the most backward part, pretty much the most backward part of the world. Other people really looked down on this part of the world where Prophet Muhammad was. Okay, and he himself didn't even know how to read and write. So it's pretty amazing, this kind of teaching. But it's not. That's not where the amazingness finishes. Okay, this and there's a few more things I want to squeeze in about teaching of Islam about solving COVID. But why is it so amazing? First of all, let's think about COVID. COVID is basically a living thing that we get infected with, and it dies in, let's say, 2 weeks. Okay, so if you stay where you are and don't let it go anywhere for just 2 weeks, it will die. That will be the end of it. Okay, it's not magic. It doesn't just get around by itself. You take it around. Okay, so if you're organized, let's say, there's so many benefits to this teaching. It's amazing. So lockdowns are really hard because you have to be trapped in your house. But what happens if you had a bubble lockdown, which is different? It's according to the teachings of Islam, you stay in your area, you go to shops, you run your businesses, the economy doesn't collapse, but you stay within that area. Maybe some businesses are going to be a bit difficult, like say if you don't live in the area where your business or work is, but you could maybe adapt. I don't know, but it'll be less damage. Okay, it's not like there's going to be no damage. Okay, so that way schools continue. Right now, people are not staying in bubbles, and like people go to schools are where the super spreaders, my children and stuff like that, go to. Right, they are the super spreaders. There was stats where when September, when we went back to school, I'm a school teacher, by the way. um, the coronavirus infection rates went through the roof, and they tracked it by age, and it was the kids who are going to secondary school. Okay, so in this kind of lockdown, it doesn't help. But if you have the lockdown where you're in bubbles, you can spread your virus amongst yourself. It's going to die anyway, as long as you don't send it to a new person who's not got it. So you stay in your bubble, all give it to each other, let the COVID die, and then let yourself out. But don't go into another bubble where the COVID is not dead. So there's so much wisdom in it. Then there's the other element, like people are not following it. Okay, they're secretly having birthday parties and family members. Maybe I'm not going to say too much. Okay. So actually, I don't really know. I was just guessing about something that's happened the other day, and I'm just kind of joking about it. But it's not a good joke. I'm not sure. Anyway, so um, yeah. So yeah, people are not following the rules. So why are they not following the rules? Two reasons. Partly because they don't trust the government. There's a lot of distrust about the government, right? Okay, so the teaching of Islam, very briefly about this, is that avoid suspicion, because suspicion often leads to falsehood. That's a saying of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So we are suspicious of the government. Fine, they do a lot of bad things. Doesn't mean if they say water exists, it stops existing. Okay. And if you don't have facts, then you're starting to be stupid. I don't want to say in an insulting way. Maybe I'm talking too quickly, trying to get in everything in 1 minute. So let's move on to the next thing. So avoid suspicion. It's not a intelligent way to move forward. Try to find real facts. I'm not insulting people who are I don't know, people who don't believe COVID exists or something. Anyway, because that's not my job. It doesn't help anybody to be insulting. And the second thing is following government, even if they're stupid. Now, you might say that's crazy. Okay. By having organization, you avoid anarchy. And when you don't have, if you had anarchy, nothing would work and we all die very quickly. There is a very careful supply chain and that feeds us. There's so much organization that maintains our modern society. Okay, you need some level of organization. You need strong leadership. A lot of the reasons why government is not doing the right thing is because they're scared of being unpopular. If they knew people would just listen because they got that, you need strong leadership, especially in times of something like crisis, like a COVID, so that people just do what they're supposed to do. Then things get solved. And so there's a big argument or discussion like, oh, shouldn't we be a bit more like China? Well, they say, oh, no, we don't be like China. China committing genocide and killing Muslims and stuff. The Uyghurs or something? Yugis? Sorry. Anyway, we don't want to be like, no, don't avoid the genocide bit, but what about you know take something good from their regime, or whatever you want to call it, that there's something good about you listening to your leaders, maybe not by force. It's better, is more civilized if you don't have to be forced for your own benefit. But anyway, that's the end of the show. Thank you so much for listening. Peace be upon you. Have a great week. Assalamu alaikum. Looking for my arrow. There it is. And that goes on the other side. And end broadcast.